The emphasis was to not get sick in the first place, which is why prevention was the core focus of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is a very personalized science. Something that works for you might not work for me. So our digestion capacity will be different, and which is why maybe you'll be able to digest a pizza well, but I would not be. Ayurveda believes in balance, and so, not just balance among your body, mind, and spirit, but also the balance between you and the environment that you are living in. For example, people in colder countries would have a different diet and lifestyle suggestion than the ones who are living in hot countries. Say no to working lunches because I've been in so many of them, and it's not a wholesome experience. You are neither eating nor you are contributing to the meeting. Just looking at people as people and not machines. I think if companies just do that.
Ankana, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to our chat.
Thank you, Chiki. I'm also very happy to be here.
So, before we get started talking about your area of expertise, I'd love to know if you have one of your favorite well being boosting strategies that you'd like to share with our viewers.
So I'll tell you my favorite one, which I also follow, and I've been following that for 5 to 6 years now, is to follow the sun. So it's rising with it and then setting with it. And why I say that, because there's kind of agreement between Ayurveda and modern science on this. In modern science, it is called circadian rhythm. So our body, it has its own biological clock, which is also 24 hours. And if you flow with that rhythm, for example, being active in the day and taking rest at night, it does it does good for your well-being. So that would be my suggestion, to follow the sun.
I absolutely love that, and it's kind of unique. So, I'm glad that people get an opportunity to learn from that. So, to move on, rather than talking specifically about your background, I don't know a ton about Ayurveda, which is your area of expertise. So, can you just tell us what that is and why it's important for mental health and well being?
Okay, so Ayurveda is a medical system which is about 5,000 years old, and it comes from India. And to give you a context, because when we talk about something which is 5,000 years old, people think it's ancient. It definitely is ancient. And if you have to imagine our lives about 5,000 years back, it gets slightly difficult. But just to give you an idea, we did not have the modern hospitals that we have today. We didn't have these pharmacies that we have today. No modern day comforts, no tech for sure. So life was really simple at that point of time. But what has happened now, because of a lot of modern comforts and tech that we have got confused between how technology evolves and how humans evolve. So the pace of evolution of human bodies, or for that matter any species, is not so high as we see tech evolving. So our bodies were almost the same, 99.9% same, as our body was 5,000 years back. So something that worked then should also work today. So that's the core principle of Ayurveda, and Ayurveda does it in a beautiful way. There are two ways I will talk about, because there are many and I want to keep it slightly restricted because of time. One is Ayurveda believes in balance, and so, not just balance among your body, mind, and spirit, but also the balance between you and the environment that you are living in. For example, people in colder countries would have a different diet and lifestyle suggestion than the ones who are living in hot countries, because in colder countries, generally people tend to have better digestion than people living in hotter countries, which is why you see a lot of people in colder countries will consume non-vegetarian food, and they are able to digest it. They would have raw salads, but they will still be able to digest it much more easily than the ones who are living in hotter countries. Similarly, there is recommendation of different food at different times of the day. So the food that are digestible in the morning easily are not that digestible in the evening. Similarly, for winter versus summer, it's not that you should only change your decor or fashion as the season changes. You should also change your diet and lifestyle. So that is one part of balance. Of And balance typically would mean prevention, because at that point of time, in 5,000 years ago, there were no modern hospitals, so there wasn't this system of emergency that we have today. So the emphasis was to not get sick in the first place, which is why prevention was the core focus of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is a very personalized science. Something that works for you might not work for me. So our digestion capacity will be different, and which is why maybe you'll be able to digest a pizza well, but I would not be. So there are about 10 kinds of mind body constitution that Ayurveda has, and each of us will fit into one of it. Four of them are quite rare, four of them is what majority is, and two is in between. So, with this inherent perspective on keeping you in balance in your body, mind, and spirit, and also giving you recommendation that fits well for you, is what typically Ayurveda is about.
That's fascinating. It's so nuanced compared to what we think of as healthy versus not healthy eating. So, how
So,
does, oh, go ahead.
yeah, so Ayurveda is not a system that will tell you that anyone can have anything in any season at any point of the time. It will completely depend on your constitution, the weather outside, everything will be included in the recommendations that are being given to you.
So, how do you figure out what recommendations to give people? Like, I'm curious. I want to know what I should eat. Maybe we can do a little bit of a test.
Yeah, so there is an assessment. There is typically a questionnaire which will have about 30 to 40 questions, and it will tell you about the type, as I said, mind and body type, to give you a very loose translation. You would have heard of ectomorph, endomorph, and mesomorph, but that talks only about your physical construct. So Ayurveda takes into account your mind. Like there are questions about what kind of thoughts you have, how well you sleep, how are your fingers, uh, do you have broad shoulders, what do you like which tastes do you like? Do you like bitter? Do you like pungent? Do you like astringent, sweet, salty, sour? So based on that assessment, that is what your make is, your constitution is. But typically people will come to Ayurvedic doctor with some kind of aggravation or some kind of imbalance. So imbalance or that aggravation will have a nature of its own. So the protocol is that the nature of the imbalance is something that should come in sync with your inherent balance, your constitution, and that is when you'll live in equilibrium. So that is what the protocol is typically about.
That's really interesting. So, the
Very,
imbalance,
very technical.
yeah, it sounds complicated.
Okay.
if
Okay.
is the imbalance, like, how do imbalances arise?
Okay. So imbalances will have different kind of manifestations. For example, if I have an imbalance in the way the energy moves inside me, typically I will have racing mind, I will not be able to sleep well. Even in dreams I will probably see a lot of movement, I'll see flying. So that is how, if the energy is not flowing correctly throughout your body, that will happen. Sometimes it shows in terms of your digestion. People go through IBS, right? Sometimes they will have loose motions. On the other side, the manifestation could also be something like constipation. So either side is not a balanced way of living. So these are some of the ways that it will manifest. Sometimes people will feel very lethargic, they would not want to move, they would just want to be by themselves, sit on the couch, eat all day and watch TV. That is also an imbalance.
Hmm, interesting. And so, when you are working with people who have these imbalances, how do you start to resolve them?
So again, yeah, depending on the kind of imbalance they have, The first line of treatment is to give them like a routine that is possible for them. And it is important for me to meet them where they are, because we are in well-being industry, we are so aware this is our bread and butter. We we have a different kind of lens, to with which we look at life. But for our clients, it is just one part of their life, and probably a part for which they are not able to take time out. So it is important. The first thing that I typically start with is ask them how their routine is, and then try and plug in small, consistent change so that I don't disrupt the flow. Because that is one big constraint that people have, that, oh my God, I cannot have one more thing to do in the day because people are already so busy. So I try to move with the energy of my clients and try and plug in. So I would typically give very doable things. And diet is something so personal, and it is people are so protective of it. That is the last thing I touch. So for example, I would not tell you in the first session that you should not be having pizza, because that will upset anyone, including myself, if somebody is giving me that kind of an advice. So I'll start with small things, that wake up by 6 a.m. and sleep by 10 p.m. This is something that is non-negotiable. And make lunch the heaviest meal of your day. So if you do like having pizza and you cannot survive without having pizza at least once a day, then let that be your lunch and not your dinner. So these are the small things that I would start with. And that is why the clients are more open, because I do not touch what they eat until I have made a certain progress in the journey. And then that becomes that much more easy, because by that time they also start seeing some positive result and are okay to let go of habits that they think are not serving them well. So that is how I'll typically start. Then I will add an element of exercise if they need it. Not everybody needs the exercise. Some people come in a very emaciated condition, and if they're already emaciated, I wouldn't recommend them much exercise. Maybe morning walk, or walking a bit after their meals, maybe 5 minutes after each meal. But beyond that, I would not. So these are some of the things that I start with. And most important, I see myself in them, because I have struggled with a lot of things myself. And so I know the pain, and I know the mental hurdle that people come with. It's not easy. It's not that they don't want to do it. It Sometimes it just becomes so overwhelming to do it. And especially with a system that you have not been aware of, or you have not seen growing up. Like Ayurveda is not so familiar for many people. So just getting there, buy-in gradually, one step at a time, is what I typically start with.
Yeah, I love that. Since you mentioned your story, can you talk a little bit more about how you got interested in Ayurveda and why this became such a big passion of yours?
Yeah, so my personal journey started in 2020. I had a health condition which conventional medicine was not able to figure out. So it started somewhere in March 2020. And 6 months before that, I had a heart surgery for a congenital heart disease, which got diagnosed at the right time, and I was operated and all went well. But 6 months after that, I started having a lot of joint pain. My knees hurting, and I would wake up in the night with stiff fingers, which I would not be able to move, and I would cry out of pain. So I went to the orthopedician, and when he was taking my history and I told him about the surgery, he said that technically you were dead at the time you were being operated, because your heart was kept artificially alive. There was this response in your body as if you were dead, and this is a result of that. So I went back to my cardiologist, that the orthopedician is saying such and such, so what should I do? And he said, no, nothing like that happens. I was like, two doctors who have, probably studied the same kind of medicine, they are not in concurrence. And ultimately, I'm the one who's suffering because the pain is not going away. And so at the end, they prescribed some painkillers, and they said that if in the long term it doesn't go away, or if it comes back again, then probably we'll have to put you on steroid treatment. And I got scared. I was in my early 30s, and I was like, I still have probably a long life ahead of me, and I would not want to be on permanent painkillers or steroid. And so then, because I'm from India, again, Ayurveda is something that's kind of familiar to India, so a lot of people recommend it. I was not, I was a skeptic. I didn't believe in it. I'm like, I don't know whether these things work or not. But I was in so much pain that I was like, it's worth taking the risk because it is not something invasive. At max, there will be some medicines, some modifications, and probably I'll be able to do it. And so I went ahead with it. And in 2 weeks, I started seeing the benefits. The pain obviously did not go away, but it started reducing. And then I became so positive and so hopeful in life again. And so I continued with my Ayurvedic doctor, but that, ignited something in me. It flipped a switch inside me, and I started getting curious about it. So I did short courses online. And then about 2 years later, I moved to the US. And that was the time I thought maybe this is something that I should explore at length. I did my certification as holistic Ayurvedic coach. And then I started doing one on one consultations. And after doing it for a while, a theme started showing up because I was consulting with people who were in their 30s to 50s. And the thread was that most of their well being issues were tied to the work that they were doing. And that's true because it is the most productive years of our life, and we also give the most productive part of the day to the work that we do. It doesn't always mean a corporate setting. It could be a boutique studio of your own or a small office. So then I started thinking, if it is arising from there, the solution also has to be somewhere around there. And that's when I started branching out into consulting with corporates to improve their work culture, to get workplace well-being in place. And so now I use kind of an intersection of ancient science and modern science to help people feel better at work and in life in general.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for the work that you do first.
Thank you.
And so, as you're working with these individuals and people in their workplaces, what are some of the challenges that they tend to come across?
So for employees, if I have to talk about, obviously everybody is overscheduled. People don't find the time to, and they are constantly on the go. As I said, whenever I ask for any routine change, everybody is like, oh my God, one more thing to change or to add to my already overscheduled calendar. So time is one big thing. The second thing is belief. I think people, and that's how we have seen in in the media, and it has been propagated that if you're not busy, if you're not overscheduled, you are not an achiever, you are not doing anything in life, you're not going anywhere. So if people are not operating in this vicious cycle, they feel that something is wrong with them. So I think there's this compulsive need to be busy. And I mean, we'll come to the solutions later, but I think this is the biggest struggle that we find. On my side, there's this whole body of ancient medicine. It's not just Ayurveda. There's traditional Chinese medicine, there's homeopathy, there's naturopathy, there's Unani, and there are a lot more in the African continent, because these are some of the continents where we had the earliest civilizations. So they have a lot of ancient wisdom. And in the past 100 years, with the way modern medicine has been successful, it also comes with a lot of skepticism in people to believe in this in these ancient sciences. So that is one big hurdle that I come across in my practice, and I'm sure other people practicing traditional medicine also come across that. So it takes that much longer. You have to put in much more effort to first buy the to get the buy-in in the first place. So that is one big hurdle. And but once these two are done, once you are able to find some time on their calendar and a bit of buy-in, I think then on the journey becomes easy. If I have to talk about the employer side of it, I think the biggest hurdle is the term well-being itself. Yesterday I was thinking that, few decades back, and it could be different for different countries because of the pace of modernization. But say 50 to 70 years back, nobody was talking about well being. It was not the buzzword because life was simple. People would go to work on time, have their scheduled breaks, come back home on time. And so well being was not even needed because it was just life, the way of life. But now well-being has become such a word, and sometimes it makes me feel sad that well-being has become a substitute for something that I see as the rights of the employees. For example, fair treatment of people, fair compensation, mandatory offs, compensatory offs, and just looking at people as people and not machines. I think if companies just do that, these basic things, I think well-being then it becomes a benefit on top of uh, those rights that you give to your employees. So it's important that leaders look at well-being as a part of productivity and not something that is escaping from productivity. So I think there's this cultural and there are so many good companies that do that. I'm not talking about uh, offices or workplaces are bad places to be in. Most companies do that, but I think it can be done better, and there's so many companies that can start doing it. So that is one thing that I see from the workplaces.
That is such a great point, and something that I've also wrestled with in my well-being profession is that
Mhm.
so much of the time we put the onus or the responsibility on the individual when the causes of their ill-being are actually uncontrollable and outside of themselves. So I sometimes feel conflicted about that too, because you want to help the person improve their life and have a better diet and use all these strategies, but at the same time you're like, there is sort of a cap to their ability to, like, work the hours that are actually natural to them, or engage in the activities, like, spend time in nature when maybe they live in a city where there isn't any nature. So thank you so much for honing in on that very important point that isn't talked about a lot in this
Yeah.
field.
You're right about that. Even the best of personal intentions will crumble under circumstances. And your motivation can only take you that far. Unless the environment is supportive, well being is not sustainable. Yeah.
That's sad but true. So, even though I think we can look at this realistically and honestly and know that there are circumstances in which well-being will just, not be something that we can, at least not like unshakable, permanent,
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
well-being, there are things we can do to increase our well-being little bits at a time. And so we've been talking about Ayurveda, and what are some of the benefits that you see when you work with people and help them implement these strategies?
So, in personal life, people can expect to see better digestion to start with. And with better digestion starts a lot of things. For example, better sleep, better skin, better hormone regulation. And in general, I think the way you show up at work, the way you show up in your relationships, and your general mood, I think it just gets better because even that's how I check with myself that how am I feeling. It's always how am I feeling, because there are times that I also give into a lot of my cravings. So I'll have that slice of pizza and I'll get a lot of zits on my face. But it's important to be kind to yourself, and then I'll check in with myself, did you really feel good about that one pizza that you had probably once in a month? And then I'll feel like, yeah, I think I deserve that. So I think for people, they can expect to do a lot of check-ins with themselves every time that they do something off the course. So there is this internal monitoring system that becomes automatic for you, and that is hopefully kind to you. For employers, I think there are a lot of benefits. By the way, they can see a lot less absenteeism, lot more employee engagement. They can see better team dynamics, better contribution to business. And for employers, there's a straight away positive impact on their bottom line, because they are going to save a lot of their healthcare costs. So in general, these are the benefits. I just think that your level of life, it just gets elevated.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know I've gone through my own health challenges and dietary changes. And in that process of figuring out to some extent what foods feel better for me, like my mood is better, my sleep is better, my like relationships are better because I'm not like getting angry at people for no reason. So I definitely have personally experienced some of those benefits. So, are there any other important caveats or tips or things people should know if they're considering pursuing or using Ayurveda as a tool to improve their health and well-being?
So there are some general ones. My suggestion: if you are struggling with something chronic, and if you think you need help, and if you have knocked at all the doors possible and haven't been able to feel better, then I would recommend going to an Ayurvedic doctor, because they are the specialist. However, there are some general, tips. For example, again, waking up by 6 a.m., sleeping by 10 p.m. in the night, making lunch your heaviest, then walking for about 5 to 10 minutes after each meal, because that helps regulate your insulin resistance. It helps you to be, if you're going to get diabetic, it'll delay that, or otherwise you will not become diabetic in the long run. And these are some of the practices that employees can do. For employers, biophilic design is something they can integrate. Biophilic design, again, Ayurveda does not specifically talk about biophilic design, because it is not a part of it. But philosophically, Ayurveda believes in, living in harmony with nature. So having a lot of plants like you have at your desk or in the office, having a lot of natural materials like wood, bamboo, clay, cotton, having landscape artwork in offices instead of just having modern art, getting a lot of natural light, because natural sunlight regulates your hormones a lot. So wherever possible, just get a lot of natural light. And for leaders, I would say, at least for their one-on-one meetings, where they do not have to use the laptop, where it's just one person and you, maybe do those meetings outdoors in your office, where you are exposed to a lot of greenery. The mood is little casual. You can have even your difficult conversations at that point of time, because it just becomes a lot easier. So these are some of the things that companies can do at their end. They can have defined lunch time, which is say 1.5 hours, because it doesn't put a lot of stress on the capacity of office, because not each office can have all the employees sitting in one place at the same time. So maybe people can take turns, have like a 90 minutes window in which people can have lunch, 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Say no to working lunches, because I've been in so many of them, and it's not a wholesome experience. You are neither eating nor you are contributing to the meeting. And it's like, yeah, you might be seen busy at that point of time, but I don't know if there is any productive outcome of that. So avoid working lunches at all cost. If you are giving some snacks as a part of your benefit, make sure that it's not sugary or processed food. If you're selling, it's fine, but as a part of your benefit, it should not be sugary. There are so many startups now that sell packaged snacks which have healthier, cleaner ingredients. So maybe have one of them, and use fruits as snacks. Give employees fruits to have as snacks. So these are some of the things that can be done.
Fantastic tips. I know recently I was at the doctor's office for a checkup and they had some free snacks that were sugary and like full of processed stuff. And I'm like, no, like we're at the doctor. This is horrible. So I hope that they implement some of your tips too. So this has been fascinating. I've learned a ton about Ayurveda and about you. And so if people want to learn more, where can they find you?
So they can connect with me on LinkedIn, and on LinkedIn I also share well-being tips for both employees and employers. Or they can visit my website, which is www.indium.com, where I offer one-on-one coaching services, and also I've started doing corporate workshops. So maybe they can connect with me there.
Well, wonderful. I will put the links to both of those in the description below this video. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me and to teach me a little bit about a topic that I don't really know that much about. So thanks again.
Thank you, Chike. This was wonderful.